Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. Today we'll learn about how to reset application state or cache in every X minutes or seconds. This video is especially for the people who already know the FAST API. Let's try to understand the problem statement and then we can come to the solution. If you look at this diagram, there are multiple layers where we can add caching, starting from the browser level to having a distributed caching system like something like Redis or Memcache. Okay, in the browser level you can use HTTP cache control header, like having a private something like that, and you can specify the max age to invalidate cache. And you can also add second level where you can have CDN or load balancer or reverse proxy level. You can still add some caching, okay, using HTTP cache control header like public and max age something. And in the third layer you have in the server, okay, you can use the application state object where you can store some minimal information of the request, maybe like pool information. Even if you have less information where you are serving the same information to multiple users, you can store it in application state also. And you can also use the on disk cache. Every server has a certain disk space, maybe 10 GB or 20 GB, something like that. If you have a good disk, actually like something like SSD, you can utilize that space to store that information into the disk and serve it from here rather than computing the results again and again. And finally you can have a in-memory cache, something like Redis or Memcache, you can add here also. Okay, but for low scale applications, okay, for something like intranet applications where you don't require load balancer and you don't even require the centralized caching system, something like Redis or Memcache, okay, for that you can still add caching in another layers. Okay, if you can look at this picture, I removed the caching from the CDN level, and I also remove the caching from the distributed environment system, something like a Redis or Memcache. We don't require those two things for our application, but still we added caching at the browser level using HTTP headers, and we can still utilize the caching at the server level where we can use the application state object, and we can also utilize the on disk cache object. But how are you going to reset this application state? How are you going to invalidate that cache? Maybe you have some information which you are serving to users, okay, and that information is updated every 3 hours or 2 hours. Once you set that information on the application state, restart, okay, but how are you going to reset? That's what we will discuss today. For that I have taken an example. I have created a small table also. Here I have the data sources table which will be updated, and you can think of it like every 2 hours or something. This information will remain the same for all the users. It's not user specific information. It will remain the same for every client. Okay, the client can query the API/data sources endpoint and we will send the response. It will be the same response for each and every client. It's not user specific, again I am saying. Okay, if I can go to the localhost and data sources, you can see data source 1, when was the last updated, data source 2, when was the last updated, data source 3, and when was the last updated. This information will be provided to the client. Now if you can go to the code, what I have done here, this is my application startup event and the shutdown event. Okay, in the shutdown event I am just doing close the connections that I have opened, like database connection pool. In the startup event, not only I'm using the connection pool, setting the connection pool, and I also getting the data sources and adding it to the application state object data sources, and I will get on application start. I will go to the data sources. I will execute this query start from data sources, and I fetch and store that information to the data sources. Now whenever the request comes to this endpoint, okay, instead of querying it from the database, I'm just serving it from the request.app.state and data sources, because this information has already been set on the application startup stage. Okay, I don't need to query the database again and again. Even if there is 1,000 clients, the information, I just have to take that information from the state or memory and I have to serve it to the clients, which will greatly improve the performance of your application. But there is a small issue. How are you going to reset this information? Like every 30 seconds. In my case, I don't want to 30 seconds, maybe every 3 hours or every 6 hours you want to reset this information. How are you going to reset it? That's where the fast API utils library comes into the picture. They have a decorator called repeat every. You can see they have a small decorator which comes into the picture, like repeat every. You can specify how often you want to repeat this startup event or something like that. Okay, now you can copy this line and go to your code. By the way, I will share this code in the GitHub description. Okay, and then you can also copy this decorator and paste it here. Instead of 30 seconds I will go for the 20 seconds, and then my server is already up and running. I think I don't need to reload anything. If I can go to the browser, let's see what is exactly happening. State object has no attribute data sources. It's maybe small. Okay, it's working perfectly fine. Now if you can look at the logs, and it will be updated every 20 seconds. You can see, is it 20 seconds that I mentioned or 10 seconds? Yeah, it's a 20 seconds. You can see reset application can happen. There is a log statement. Currently I mentioned there's a 30 seconds, but I'm updating it 20 seconds. Actually, it's a mistake from my side. Okay, it will be updated every 20 seconds. You can see reset application. Now what the reset application will do, every 20 seconds it will go to the database and execute this query and fetch that information, store it to the data sources. Okay, but whenever the client comes to this endpoint, they will be served the information that is already fetched stored in the state application. We don't need to fetch from the database. Okay, this will greatly improve your application performance. That's it from my end. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you have any questions or any suggestions for me to work on. Thank you. Bye bye.